Today's chat is brought to you by, well, all of your support. Through the patronage you provide the Focus Fire chat team through Podbean's crowdfunding, we are able to provide you with the weekly podcast as well as the website and other aspects of Focus Fire chat. If you have any interest in becoming a patron of the FFC, please be sure to visit our website and click on the support link. Even a single dollar helps, and for those of you who are already patrons, thank you again for your generosity.
Welcome to Focus Fire Chat. Explore together.
Welcome to Focus Fire Chat, recorded live on May 1st, 2020, over on twitch.tv/FocusFireChat. As always, I want to give a big shout out to our live chat here with us tonight. Thank you so much for joining us once again. This week's episodes are going to be focused around exploring NPC dialogue in game worlds. I'm not going to call this the advanced session because, well, it's just continuation of our shenanigans. Though we are going to talk about 1890 D&D dialogue, I think, is the conversation that we're going to have a little bit on here. But before we go any further, let's run through a quick introduction of who we have with us on the show. As always, this is your host, Blue Crew 86.
This is the completely burned out on Forges, but I have that Triumph done, so I don't have to go in them anymore. Green Eye Music Lover.
She sounds so excited.
It's just, I like Forges, but no.
How many low scores have you handed out today?
I have not handed out any low scores. I didn't have anybody just trying to farm laurels. Like, okay, I get the whole farming the laurels cheese thing where you just kill the yellow bars over and over to extend the timer, but when you're in there with blueberries, you just don't, you're making it last longer than it needs to. I didn't need any laurels. I just needed the thing completed. So, okay, thanks, don't do that.
Okay, thanks, don't do that. Well, we also have with us as guest co-hosts SirenaBesos and InferMage, Morgan and Josh. How are you guys doing?
I'm just, I don't know what you guys are talking
who
about.
Talks when. Okay, yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, so I'm just amused and enjoying the conversation, even though I have no idea what's going on.
That's me a lot of the time, so you're in good company.
Hey.
Nah,
Josh,
it's
how about you?
An event thing.
I don't know. I got distracted with Forges, and I forgot what the question was.
I think they're just asking how you were.
Who? You play a warlock, right?
I do.
Okay, just checking.
I got distracted with Forges.
I feel like I should be offended by that comment.
No.
Okay.
No. I'm just giving you grief. You were talking about how Hunter shouldn't be really working on stuff and doing their own things, and it's just like warlocks. It's just the funny stereotype things, I guess, we're going through nowadays that turns into toxicity at any point. So, you do what you can.
So, anyways, 1890s D&D.
Let's do it.
I want to know more about this, Morgan.
So Mask of the Red Death is actually a second edition D&D module. But so basically it focuses on using D&D systems going into, but using 1890 setting. So like you'll all play humans because the other races don't exist when it comes to this. But you'll be facing things like Jack the Ripper or vampires or werewolves. So very vampire hunter sort of like esque
literary type.
Yeah. So it's based off of the poem "Mask of the Red Death" by Edgar Allan Poe, where it talks about like this evil force that's slowly seeping into society, and you, as a group, are trying to stop it. So, and this force is like, infecting part of like this weird. Some of you are part of this like circle where you're invisible to the Red Death, but you're like fighting the good side and trying to be a part of it. And you're a magic caster, and then they have arrows who basically are just their guardians. It's fun. I play a cleric in that game, but
surprise.
It's called a metaphysician. Actually, no, it's called a mystic physician. It's a different title. Basically, it's a life domain cleric. And in short, the way I play her, because the game style itself, the curandera or Mexican folk healer from South Texas.
Are you? Is it taking place in like the North America region, or are you guys in like Europe?
Decided to use the Boston in the 1890s, 1890 Boston. So we actually got like an old map, kind of know the layout and stuff. But
nice.
The story behind her is that she was learning because her grandma raised her, her abuela. Then eventually her grandma fell to dementia and then like passed away. One of her grandma's old friends came to visit when she heard she passed. But then the character went on like some sort of like pain-induced weird, like whenever you're so much in pain, you get hallucinations, that sort of thing. So that sort of helped awaken her powers as she does, and then seeing dreams of going to the north from her grandma every single night. So eventually she went to Boston.
Nice. Blue, do you have any questions about the 1890s campaign?
I'm curious, how do you? So you're just a player in that?
I'm a player in that one.
Okay, so how does that DM run it differently than you would? I mean, because it sounds like an obvious question, but how do you run it differently than you would your average D&D or tabletop? Like, what do they do? Anything special to help the atmosphere differ?
I think for him, he talks a lot about air, and then there's just that buy-in that we all have where we all understand, like, hey, this is the 1890s. Well, it's not going to be like strictly the 1890s that we know it as today, but more like 2020 mindset in 1890 sort of situation. Because I play someone from like my culture who is she's a Mexican folk healer, so she's indigenous to Texas. We have another character who comes from a Korean family, her family's a doctor, and she just graduated college. So it's a lot more of a very liberal mindset than like, this is the 1890s where women were just there and men did all the talking, or, it's a very different, like, it plays it's more palatable for us as players instead of being like holistic.
Right. So it's more of a modernistic version of the 1890s. But does he do, or do they have like a specific way of like doing dialogue for the characters that is different than like your average NPCs in your normal games? Or do they is it just using that underlying understanding from everyone that kind of colors the conversations?
He'll do voices on occasion. Like, for example, we fight some white supremacists, which is fun. And one of the leaders was a man from the South, so he had a very Southern accent. And so our DM actually put off, like, now listen here, I think you're going to die by the end of the night. We're going to be fighting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Those are always fun. I'm just curious with when I think 1890s, I think industrial era, right? Like, that's that kind of sort of flavor that you get from that time frame, and I automatically almost always go to steampunk in my mind. Is he doing a steampunk thing, or is it
no?
Okay.
No steampunk here. But yeah, it's very more like, and I'm such a nerd when it comes to historical stuff. I'm like, I get it right, but like, Morgan, no one cares. I'm like, no, I must look into this. So actually, on my end, I actually did research in regards to like clothing and like, outfits, and then like, I don't know, I did a lot.
Nice.
So what's your character's name?
Name's
How do they talk?
Name's Ignacia. And I think just because of who she is, she has more of a softer tone. It's like a firm soft. I don't know what that means. It's just something that sits on the back of the throat, and she speaks slowly. And
more weighted.
Yeah, it definitely has more weight to it for her. Because she tries to be more picky about her words and how she talks, and more, just, all right, cool. If we're gonna do this, we're gonna do this the right way. But she knows, she's like one of the few who actually knows magic.
Okay.
Because it's basically a 4-person player game. I have her, then or the Korean American one I was talking about. Her name is Agnes. She plays essentially, quote unquote, it's called a metaphysician in the game. It has bard-like powers, but she doesn't play like a bard. She plays it like a skeptic. So she was the type that always went to all the occult shows and whatnot, and like, like, boo, this is fake because of this, and like,
Right.
Nice.
So
She's
anytime
the-
she started doing magic, she actually is like, no, it's hypnotism, or like, oh, I'm hallucinating, and like she'd always like find a rational reason why this magic is happening on her. Now that we're in
Kind of
like
a fun little quirk to have for a character. Probably
and
go for it. Sorry.
I'm gonna say now that we're like into like our third season, however, she's like, all right, I guess I do magic, but I'm not a fan of it. she's accepting at this point, but she's not like out of it.
Blue.
Well, I was going to say, so you guys mentioned like quirks and stuff like that. Do you guys find that doing that assists with developing your own like dialogue or your understanding of the dialogue that characters have? I'm thinking here, like, especially not just for role playing, but for like story writing too. Like when you're trying to figure out the character's voice or whatever, does having that kind of build out in your head, do you find that helps or hinders, the process? Again, these are questions that, like, as I'm asking them, I feel like I know the answer, but I want to ask them anyways, just in case you guys have a surprise for me. So, like, with the, they're not necessarily character flaws, but like character quirks or character like specific unique characteristics. How do you think that plays into developing dialogue? Like, is it a big part of that? Is it a like not very essential part of it? What would you say?
I mean, I think that's a pretty essential part of building them out as a person, other than just a box of information.
Right.
But I also have a tendency to overthink a lot of my characters, and I have to like the NPCs in like a game. Like if a player finds someone interesting, then like later on I have to use downtime to all of that to like better develop them next time. I don't know. Morgan's better with like the live kind of stuff.
I do do things on the fly. Josh has played at my table a couple times, so sometimes you just gotta go with that, and you're like, okay, cool. Yeah, that's why sometimes I'll ask for breaks. Like, okay, let's take like a 5-minute bio break, and then like during that time, like, oh shit, what are we doing? I'm just in the bathroom, just staring in the mirror, like, what's going on?
Oh, is that why DMs keep asking about breaks? I feel bad now.
we gotta take a minute. So that's why we say, all right, let's do a bio break. So we're like, okay, cool.
On my Monday game, that happens so many times, and like all of us at the table, we're just looking around like, no, we're good. Let's keep going.
We just had our break 5 minutes ago. What's going on? Oh, that cracks me up.
But your DM's like new to your shenanigans. Give him time, okay?
I know.
Be nice.
I know that makes
John.
me feel real bad now.
Give him a chance. He's trying. So side note, Monday, because I don't know if the bar we play at basically has like 12 different DMs and whatnot. Their DM to leave quickly because he got a job promotion. So we found a new DM to stick in for the table, but he's new to the whole thing. Like he's never played there before or anything like that. So
oh, wow. So he's like completely.
Yeah. So he I think joined your table the first game just to like see how like it went, and then like talk to us afterwards.
Table.
Yeah. So, and then he came running the table like the next game, and we're like,
he ran 2 games, and then everything went into quarantine, so it's been super fun.
I'll play online right now.
Really like,
okay,
so he's actually a very good DM, but
good.
But yes, I feel bad now that I should give him more breaks.
I should give him more breaks. I'm just impressed that he came back for a second round.
Surprised, yeah. Well, like he was able to hang out with us after he got to play and like see it and talk to us. And I basically messaged him later, like, how do you? Because I don't play or I don't run games anymore.
Was Josh nice?
I was like, how did it go? Is everything okay? Because what I do there now is because I played and I ran tables, and now just because I'm so busy with podcasts and whatnot, I'm just like, I can't. So I basically do like the HR stuff where like I make sure we get players for the tables. If they need someone to talk to and they can't talk to their DM or the bar owner, they can come to me.
That's cool.
Just like, I just try to be a friendly face so people say hi, my friends. So like, but yeah. So basically, I was like, hey, how did it go? Everything good? Okay, cool. All right.
Are we going to see you next week?
Please tell me. I don't want to randomly run a table because I'll do that too. Like if a DM can't run for a second, I'm like, all right, cool. I guess I'll run the table. All right. I suppose.
That's funny.
Do you mean running a table as in taking over for another DM when a group comes in, or?
Yeah, like for example, like a DM gets sick that day, and then to run that table that night for the bar, and their players are still looking to play, and none of the players themselves want to take on the role or anything like that. I'll step in and be like, "All right, give me some notes. Let me figure this out."
So, in that case, is it like a long-term campaign, or are these more like that one-shot squirrel campaign where you kind of know the beats of the story that you're going to be telling, but you're still having to develop it out?
I'm having to continue on that story. Kind of like whenever you watch a TV show and there's a guest writer for that episode.
Okay.
So, like all of season 5 of Supernatural.
Yeah.
Season 5 was the last.
Or
good
season 6. Season 6.
There you go.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say
Sorry,
season 3
I couldn't remember.
of Heroes, but like. But it's kind of like that. I mean, a lot of DMs will tell me what they need to be run. Like, oh, during this game, I was going to do this, or like, oh, this is what happened, so carry on. I'm like, okay, cool. Like one DM says, like, hey, they're on a travel bit from A to B. All the blanks. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Well, get an owlbear companion because I said so, and there you go.
Yeah. So
I mean,
actually,
sometimes that's all that players need.
That's all they want most of the time. Not gonna lie, that and a good flag.
You get a baby owlbear because you killed the owlbear's family. So
no, that's
take
a
care
terrifying of little tyke right there.
Yeah, I know.
That's actually a pretty decent segue into if you were taking on, say, obviously in a D&D setting, you're taking on a story that somebody else has already created and is continuing. And the NPCs that you're taking on from them may or may not be the same NPC depending on the story that you're telling that evening. But if you were to take on, say, an established story like Supernatural, and you have to write for these characters, how would you take on the challenge of getting not only the voicing down right, because at that point there's already something there that everyone's hooked onto. How do you kind of prepare yourself to take on those characters' voices?
Yeah, Josh, how do you do that? How do you do that, Josh?
I mean, I don't do that. However, fanfic, it's like a great tool to prepare for this. Sometimes it's just good to like just practice other people's properties' voices, and getting into that is good for being flexible, I guess.
Okay. Is there a character voice that you've stepped into that you really enjoy writing as or for that would be recognizable for a more populous group? Is there a Destiny character that you've fanfic written before?
Oh, it's been a long time for me. How about you, Morgan?
Subtle. Super subtle. Mic click. That's hilarious. Oh my god. Okay, we're actually not going to get an answer on that one. Okay.
I'm trying to think, but like all my NPCs are.
And
I haven't really.
Now it's time for a break.
Can we have a bio break, like 5 minutes, like just so I can come back to this question?
I'll tell you mine, Josh, if you tell me yours.
I'm good.
That's funny. Blue, have you done any sort of writing like that, or like stepped into another character?
No, I make a habit of not doing that.
Is there a reason why, or?
I don't like it.
Okay.
It like kind of like what Josh was saying is like with his like overthinking characters. I already think like a lot about the character voice that I have running, so it's a weird form of like cognitive dissonance for me to try to take over another person's character, because I'm like the entire time I would basically be sitting there trying to figure out, is this, it would be, the entire thing is self-doubting. Like, I wouldn't be able to write because I would be so concerned with doing the character quote unquote justice for their stuff. It would probably like impose on me a writer's block, basically. I mean, I think the easiest way is to say the cognitive dissonance, because I wouldn't be able to get into that character's headspace. Like, that's why. Sure. Go for it.
But isn't that kind of the fun thing about stepping into a role, is that you are better learning that role in some ways. You're not necessarily taking over the exact copy per se, because obviously you can't necessarily, but you're going to have the beats or the stereotypes for that character be your guide. At least that's how I've done it when I've written for other characters. Right.
Yeah. And there's this weird thing where like logically I understand what you're saying. That's like when I write, I really like playing like play-by-posts because I feel like I'm a little bit stronger with text-based communication. So like with the way I write is I really try to, for lack of a better term, embody what I'm writing. That's why I can't do like parody. Like, that's why I have a lot of respect for people who do parody, RP accounts, like what we were talking about a little bit with, the Destiny RP accounts. I cannot do that. Like, that's not something all my characters that I've ever written are all original characters. Like, I've never been able to take a character, like, even when I run DM games and do NPCs, I actually generally will rewrite NPCs with my own versions of them. Like, if they give you a cookie cutter NPC, for the most part, most of the ones that I've played that have significance have been rewritten by me, because I have to take them and I have to make them. I have to make sense of what they're doing and why they're doing it. Like, if it's just like a 2D, goblin or whatever, no, I don't do that. But like, if it's a character where the intent is that the character is going to be a larger part of the story, that character, I can't just take, even with D&D and stuff, like, I can't just take a cookie cutter character. Like, it's very difficult for me to do that.
But there's a moment when you're looking at these characters, and since you know their background, I'm going to use Zavala as an example, even though Zavala is not a character I've ever written for. But you know his history, you know his background, kind of, it's what we do in the show, where we break apart what his motives and his feelings and his emotional state that we can tell based off of the information we have. You can take that and kind of create your own miniature story, knowing those beats and how he feels in that.
Correct. And I find that, like, character analysis, I'm really good with, and I know it's a weird, like, hair split on that term. Like, character analysis, I find that I can do really well with stuff like that. But even that, like, even creating a character, like, I don't know, I logically, I understand the point, like, I do. But I can't, like, my brain locks up when it comes down to that. Because I just basically, again, I keep going into the understanding the motivation of not just what's being said, but what's being done by that character at the time. And since I didn't develop that character, I feel like I don't have an insight into that character.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
It does. It's almost as if you have too much respect for the writer to ever take on another character's shoes.
Yeah, I mean, there is There is that. I would ascribe it more to, like what Josh was saying about thinking too much about the character. Like, I don't, because I get really bugged out when characters make uncharacteristic, like sudden changes, which is why I can't stay with TV shows for a long time, is because as soon as a writer changes, generally characters will, follow suit. And like it bugs me. So like if I'm the one that's doing that, I'm like, it's like I am causing my own consternation at this artistic form, which is yeah. Long answer for that.
No. Makes sense. Josh and Morgan, do you guys have any instances where you feel like you can or cannot step into another character? I know, Josh, we were kind of joking a little bit about writing fan fiction, but do you feel like you can jump into most characters, or are there certain characters that you would be like, nope, never going there?
I mean, for me, it's more just about familiarity with the character and how comfortable I am with that character.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I will go ahead and admit that I wrote Animorphs fanfic. Like that was the big thing that I was into in middle school.
Did you write Tobias? Because
no, Rachel was a bad.
I mean, she was, but Tobias was really cool.
Tobias.
I love Tobias. He was the heartthrob. You gotta love Tobias.
He was a bird.
He was a heartthrob. I liked him. He was sensitive. We were way
I knew
too
I liked you
into
for a
that.
reason, Green.
But so like, especially with Animorphs, like it was kind of freeing to find out, like when I got older, that like all of those books were actually pretty much ghost written, and like is just this whole collection of different people writing these same characters.
Which
so I guess that felt kind of.
That made it make so much more sense too.
Yeah, it does, because there was not a continuous storyline going on, really.
Well, not even that, but the style. Like, the style, right. Which, like, because I actually thought it was because they wrote from, like, 5 different points of view. But as soon as I was like, oh, that makes so much more sense.
Yeah, but then it's the same thing with, like, comic books, too. Like, the switch writers on what book and with what characters, and I guess I don't know, like I guess like when I was younger, like I had more of a tolerance for that kind of stuff, and now I have writers that I don't like, but
it's not necessarily the same character that comes across at that point.
Yeah, but still, for me, like it still feels like a free thing that I could do if I wanted to. Feels less of like this is a big thing that's so well established that I can't touch it.
Gotcha.
So what fanfic did you write?
I write Petra. I write as Petra on Twitter for the most part, and she has had many shenanigans. And she's actually, I mean, as you write as a fanfic writer, the character obviously takes on kind of different feelings, and I've tried really hard to stick to the events that are going on in Destiny at the time that I'm writing her. So when I first started it really had to do with the death of Cade and her role in the Reef with Mara being gone and whatnot, and then it changed as Mara came back into the scene, and her role now that basically all the Guardians have stopped going to the Dreaming City, everything has affected how she reacts, even though we haven't had any new dialogue from her in almost, a year and a half now in game. She's continued to grow in my mind, and that's one of the more intricate ways I guess I interact with the game, is that I don't think about just the character dialogue that we have. I do the dangerous thing of thinking about, okay, what are they continuing to feel? Like, what's going on with Callus now? And it kind of just helps you remember that there are these different characters out there that have things still going on. They're not just static.
But what is going on with Callus?
And also, what is this Twitter handle?
I actually haven't written on Twitter for her in a long time. Not seriously, at least. It's been, like, fun, silly stuff, but I've kind of moved away from Twitter and moved into Discord and more long format, because 140 characters or whatever it is now, 180, is just not long enough.
Yeah,
it's that limiting of any kind.
It is, but you also get really good at picking your words carefully to mean exactly what you want them to mean. Anyway.
I can see that, yeah. It is definitely a art form in and of itself.
Twitter? Or
well, yes, Twitter
RPing.
In general. Yeah, well, yes, and yes.
Mm-hmm.
Twitter is an art form in and of itself that I will never understand because it's whatever. RPing is definitely an art form, but RPing on Twitter is in and of itself this like really interestingly weird art form. Like I really actually respect the people who can pull it off because, and there's a couple accounts on there that are really fun to follow.
Mm-hmm. There's a Marasov account that I absolutely adore. She is a marvelous writer and does a very good job of bringing some humor to Mara without breaking the character, which is hard to do. Like, having some sort of snark in there that isn't necessarily demeaning like we get as a character in game, or as a guardian in game. We always get kind of more of that either somber tone from her or just a little bit of snark that's slightly degrading at the same time.
Speak.
Yes. Ghost not happy with her, but
oh god,
she does.
I forgot about that.
Right? Oh my gosh, Ghost is just not happy. But you get the moments from good writers who can take that character and you put them in a slightly different setting and still manage to keep the voice, but flesh out a little bit more personality rather than just this 2D thing that you get in game. I find it super impressive. I can't find you her Twitter. She's still fairly active. And somebody else.
What about you, Morgan?
I think it's really hard to top into somebody else's voice. I actually just got a voice acting role for this one. It's an actual play podcast, but they've got enough people where they actually are doing like side stories of the NPCs. I'm doing the voice for Big Millie, who runs the Funplex. And she used to be an ice trucker back down in the town of Revenant in Alaska, where the game takes place. And so going on for like a year and a half now or so. And this NPC has been like rotating in and out of that game. And so I'm taking on the voice of this character. I'm like, she sound? And like she's like, oh, just strong and like no bullshit, like sort of character. And I'm just like, you want me to voice her? You sure? I don't, because it's always been the same. Keeper is the game facilitator for Monster of the Week. It's called the person's called a keeper instead of a dungeon master, and so it's been the same person running this character like as this NPC, and now hearing like giving voice to this character as someone else. I'm gonna screw this up so badly, like gonna be awful. But we actually were able to hear some of the pieces that we worked on today, and maybe I'm still self-conscious of my own voice because it's not my character, so it's not like really my voice technically, but
Isn't that a fun challenge though, or do you find that more draining than like a good challenge or like a good reward for it to create that kind of voice?
I say it is a challenge, but also it's frustrating because I don't want to screw it up for the for that person. Like, I'm just like, this isn't mine, so like if it was mine, I'd be like, whatever. This is what the voice they have now. I don't care. But now, since I'm doing it for somebody else, I'm like, oh, it must be perfect. Oh no. Like when I was recording my lines, because whenever you do voice acting, apparently, it's not like when you do like actual plays or anything like that where you're bouncing off emotions and feelings from one another. Do it by yourself. Then you gotta just go with it. Yeah. So I'm just like, how do I get this emotion and like feeling? And so I think I did like 5 takes of my lines because I was just like, I'm sorry, editor. I think that's the best way to do it though, especially if you're providing, I call them dry dialogue back to whoever's the producer, the sound tech. And it gives you a chance when you're recording multiple takes to at least give them options of, this is all the different variants I can see this character feeling in this moment. Like, this is how she would go across.
pick the one that goes closest to what the other character was, like the actual voice actor or the one you're taking over for that moment. I would find that more comforting, I think.
It's just it's a lot, especially it's my first time ever doing voice acting stuff in general. So
I gotcha.
Just like, no, I must do this right, and then like we actually did a read through at first just so we can get a feel, like, you know, at least all of us talk to each other at first, and then like just get a week read through of how we're all like gonna read it and stuff. I did a lot more of a Southern accent than I did for the actual show, and then I was like, oh, I don't know, maybe, and then decided just to nix a Southern accent, and then now like the guy who plays her brother kind of has a Southern accent. I was like, I wish we talked. I could have done it too. It's just like
I think it's just
a thing.
Yeah. I think at this point, since we're split down the middle on like taking on another person's character and voicing it being kind of a fun experience versus a challenging and slightly maybe scary experience. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's good that there are both kinds of people able to not only step into those roles and kind of feel the empathy for those characters, not just on the A-B side, but actually kind of take on it and just be that AA side and feel it more like, unfortunately, like Heath Ledger. Or there are characters that I would never step into. I would never want to write for the Joker because you have so many different variables of Joker at this point, right? Like you have the Jack Nicholson, you're different actors for that when you're creating those voices. I don't know. I don't think I would like to step into some of those roles, villains in particular. It's real easy to go into.
I guess that's the other question too. Is like,
that.
Do you find it easier to step into the role if the role is a hero or a villain? Like, do you find it? Because, like, you know, the other thing for me, it's like when you talk about stepping into roles, it's like generally across the board, it doesn't matter if it's a hero or villain. It's because I can't lock down the cognation of that particular character. But, you know, like what you just said there is like, would it be easier for you to step into the role if it was a hero? I mean, obviously you are. But,
I would have, certain types of villains I would have an easier time with. Villains that are more, this is going to be super stereotypical, manipulative women, I rather enjoy writing. But, like, there's a character from a book series, the Cushion's Dart series, Melisande. I actually really enjoy writing her character because she's a smart, very, very, very manipulative woman and is able to create situations with long plays, kind of like a Mara character. I in some ways, I see Mara as a villain type character, even though she's
I can see the argument for that. Yeah. Well, arguably, currently.
Right. But, like, I can more easily step into, I think, the characters that are duty-bound rather than a quote-unquote hero character. Because a lot of times heroes don't necessarily follow the rules or anything like that. And duty-bound ones don't necessarily as well. They're just more, they have a excuse to act the way they do, rather than just the noble way out. Josh, do you have any? You said you were pretty okay with writing just about any character.
Oh my god, I am so good at villains.
Yeah.
This is why we don't trust you.
You're a bard.
You're a bard.
I don't see how that's related.
Of course you don't.
Is there a particular type of villain you like to write more than others?
It's easier to, like, the intelligent, manipulative villain is more fun. Like, I don't know, I tried, like, I don't know, Power Rangers kind of bumbling villain.
Yeah.
And, like, that was a bad time. Yeah.
That was a bad time.
Like, like, that hurt my soul. But other villains are way more fun.
I gotcha. Is there a particular, I guess you would call them hero types, that you feel more comfortable writing? Or do you like to, or are you that person who likes to write those gray Jedi characters that are supposedly in the middle, or the like our Guardian characters?
I feel like I have a lot more, like, especially with writing, I have a lot more fun with the more, like, the people, like, if they're quick side, the people who aren't really in the spotlight and are more, like, in the background.
Mm-hmm.
Because then there's
Yeah.
less responsibility and I can just do whatever I want.
Well,
Okay.
Josh, going down that, like am I allowed to talk about the project that you and my wife are working on?
I don't know. You need to talk to your wife about that.
All right. Well, anyways, that showcases that ability really well because some of my
Wait. So which part is he writing?
well, it's
I know it's collaborative, but
yeah. So like I mean, that's I don't know how the best way to explain it. But it's really
we went back and forth a lot.
okay.
And it's done. So, man, you guys have done an amazing job with it. But like the character that is the third party member, it's just like some of the best parts of that book is his character's reaction to things. I just love it. And it's like, and it showcases really, I think, what you just said there is like, he's not, I mean, he is a primary character insofar as like some of the things, but in a lot of the ways I do view him as not the main focus. Though he is my main focus because he's freaking hilarious and I love him. Like,
not necessarily flavor text kind of character, but somebody who just rounds out the personalities of the group.
Yeah. He God, man, I don't want to talk too much because I don't want to spoil it, but it's
like the character that I can use to like soften things a little and like pivot the action and like just throw him into the background getting drunk while like serious things are happening.
So he's Cade and a bard.
I mean, I don't know about.
I don't know if you're
basically
wrong.
Right. Like in the context of like the Vanguard group, if Ikora, Zavala, and Cade were doing something, Cade's the one in the background who, even though he's driving some of the storyline stuff, he's doing it from kind of that I'm not taking charge, but I'm going to go do this anyway kind of thing.
That's very much this character. Yeah.
Okay.
But like the going to the dialogue, some of the quips that are provided, it reminds me a lot of like the official like court jester type thing where like you for the most part everyone ignores him, but then like there'll be like the one thing that he just like nails, and it's just like you're like, oh wait, you actually are paying attention like a lot more than people give you credit for. And that's that type of dialogue writing I really appreciate, and it's very well done.
Nice. That's awesome.
Because sometimes when you develop dialogue for NPCs, just to come all the way back around, well, it's really helpful to just let things sit for a while and like collect all the excellent quips that you wish you had said during the day and just throw them in later.
That's fair. Okay, so in this project or anything that you're writing in this style, are you going back and forth with the primary, like another person? Are you literally dialoguing back and forth like an RP post would be, with basically RP but a little bit more than just typical RP, or not just back and forth one line, but you're actually giving full scene and descriptive text on what's actually going on in the area?
It depends. I mean, I've tried that. I feel like it's helped a little bit more just collaboratively. Like it's helped to do my own thing and then let my collaborator go over it, and then vice versa, just to flesh things out on both sides. Like I feel like that also just process then trying to schedule out time to do like a play by post kind of format. Because plus with a play by post kind of format, like there tends to be a lot of extra that you don't necessarily want when you're like writing your narrative.
Sure. Interesting.
Yeah, because I know, like, and I think I always find it interesting looking at, just books in general, how if they've been collaboratively written, there are different strategies obviously there. And I know a really common one that I've seen actually a lot of people do is the whole trading chapters. Like one person will write one chapter, the other person writes the other chapter, and then they go back. Because the writing portion of it is only half, or that's only a small part of the actual end project, because like you have to get it down, but then comes in the editing and making sure that it flows. And so I know a lot of times what they would do with the ones that I've kind of looked at behind the scenes is, whoever wrote the chapter, then the other person or the other people, however many authors you have running on it, but usually it's just two, but like the other person would edit it. And then, or they would write a different version of it, and they would go back and forth that way. And that way it also allows for a consistent voice, a consistent tone throughout the work, because like if Josh and I were writing a book and he does chapter 1, 3, and 5, and I do 2, 4, and 6, then I would edit 1, 3, 5. He would edit 2, 4, 6.
Right.
And then eventually you do get a uniform.
Right, but even then, there are examples of, and I'm going to get so much flack for this, and I honestly don't care, because it is the most basic book, trilogy, whatever it is at this point, that could actually say that the back and forth doesn't necessarily have to have similar voice, is when you have each chapter be a separate character's point of view of maybe the same event or a different event. And the one I'm thinking of is Twilight in the last book. I think it was the fourth book or whatever. The last book, you're switching perspectives so very much. And it's a terrible series that I did read back in college because, back then. Whatever.
I only use it as fire tender. But I will say that is not an uncommon approach, even for Wheel of Time. Wheel of Time was not collaboratively written. It was mostly single person until the main author Robert Jordan died,
and then Brandon Sanderson took over.
Yeah, but even then, the way he wrote that book, each character was each chapter was its own character brought to the voice. And so like and that's actually one of the reasons I really like that book, is because each chapter really does have in its own way a unique voice. He still has the same, like, it's still the same style, if you will, but he has done a really good job with making each chapter unique, or each character unique. And I think the other thing is, like, if you were going to do something like that with a collaboration, what I would probably, for what it's worth, I would think would make sense is to do like, okay, yeah, but author A always will write for this character, because then at least you have a consistency there. Whereas if you're, flipping back and forth, I think it would introduce too many areas of potential discord.
Makes sense. That makes me really smile that you say that, because to the listeners and to Josh and Morgan here, I may have semi-forced Brandon Sanderson's Way of Kings series onto Blue. And it
took a while. I don't know how many years it took her, but...
about a year. About a year of bringing it up every 3 months or so.
The characters are interesting. I will give you that. And it's not like... It's... I don't know. Like, it's... His I guess my bone to pick with him, if you can even say that, is that I was very the way I was introduced to him was because of the whole thing with Robert Jordan, and so that was a series that was near and dear, and so like it's not like there was no hard feelings at all. It was more of just like, oh, I really like this thing, and then they're like, yeah, this person's gonna finish it, and it's like, okay, I know the situation, all that. But at the same time, it was like, but I don't want someone else to finish it. I want,
Right.
So.
That's fair. I got nothing.
I got nothing left to say on the episodes about what to say.
And join in on that, because I don't really write. So, yeah, I was just enjoying listening to y'all.
No worries. You've had like a lot of really good perspectives when it comes to that improvisation and acting, because even though you may not be writing in the traditional sense of like what Josh is doing, you're still creating that scene and that expose, I guess, on what's going on, especially while DMing. So your perspective is very much so a part of that same conversation as far as I'm concerned.
Thanks.
Nice.
I would agree with that statement. Actually, I mean, like, to me, actually, doing the improv thing is more of a challenge than writing, which is not to say that writing is not a challenge, but I'm much more in the wheelhouse of being able to sit down and think, okay, what do I want them to say? Makes more sense to me.
When you're dealing with other people, you don't really you don't know what's going to come out of their mouth, so you just gotta.
That's fair, yeah.
Go with it.
Which is why it's very uncomfortable for me, because I'm like, I don't want to do that. I don't like that.
Then why? But we do a podcast, and we've had Justin on, and Willie.
Who? Justin?
Yeah, right.
Who's that person? No. Yeah.
Just
He's gonna play that bard in that D&D game.
Oh my god.
I still want to make this a thing. It could just be a one shot. I don't care. I just want to watch Justin's mind explode as he gets to act out whatever he wants to do, and just completely take whatever we were doing and turn it into a dragon hunt or something. Just
as a squirrel bard.
As a squirrel bard with a
you say
needle
that
sword.
jokingly. You say that jokingly.
I'm putting it out into the universe because I want it to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Just yeah, oh my god. It's one of those things where it's like, be careful what you wish for.
Mm-hmm.
I'm being very careful.
There's a little bit of that evil, like, manipulative writing.
No, we always trust Josh's characters.
Blue, what do you think?
Let's do shout outs.
Cool.
Morgan, what about you for this episode version? Gosh.
This version of the podcast, you like release one or two, you're like, I'm like no. So you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at SirenaBesos. You can find me on my podcast with Red Death or Powered by the Players. Do a lot of game stuff.
Josh, what about you?
You can find me on Twitter at InferMage, or also as ASMR, the ASMR Whisper Bard.
That is amazing. I love that.
I do too.
So, Whisper Bard.
I do too.
I was just trying to been pushing that character on us for the longest, and
I love this concept. It's so great.
I hate ASMR though, so I'm just like cringing the whole time.
One day it's gonna
get up.
It'll be so good.
Out of my ears.
Get out of my ears.
He's just got a feather he takes around and just basically runs his finger over it to make just this quietest whisper of a sound. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
Oh no.
What was the question? No, I also have posts on the Lore Network. And also shout out to one of my favorite Destiny Twitter handles is D2 Lost Light, because of course.
Yeah, you want to talk about somebody moonlighting as a character.
What?
Blue?
What?
Are you gonna ever
Green,
let out your
shout outs?
Dirty little secret?
What about your shout outs, Green?
My shout out goes to I was recently on Man at Arms podcast, Destiny Unfiltered, this last week, where myself, Boop Cannon, and Wicked Jester, along with Man at Arms and On Air PC, all talked about the current state of Destiny. There was a lot of cursing, there was a lot of Titan love, maybe a few held tongues at times. Go listen to it, or even better yet, go watch it on the recap on YouTube. Blue? too light, little light.
Oh my god! And just again wanted to wish my little light happy birthday tomorrow. But yeah, that's really, and then just a big shout out to everyone who is playing support role for during this quarantine time. Namely my wife. She has done amazing at keeping everybody sane and well fed and just everything moving. I think it can't be said enough when that stuff happens. That's usually a lot of times people take that for granted, but it is really appreciated. But yep, that's what I got. And I just want to say thank you all for your time. And remember, with wisdom we conquer. Stand strong, stand tall, and keep exploring. With that, we'll begin to wrap the chat up. Thank you again to those over on Twitch for coming to spend your evening with us. If you'd like to join us for the live streaming of the episodes, please be sure to give us a follow over on twitch.tv/FocusedFireChat. Links to all our episode archives can be found at www.thelorenetwork.com. Please be sure to email us at focusedfirechat@gmail.com with any comments and or questions for the team concerning the podcast, and let us know how we're doing by giving us some feedback and a rating over on iTunes as well. So until next time, focus your fire and may your light shine bright.